All right. Good evening, everyone. This is Tom Barnico, Director of Training, Tri-City Area Officials Association. This is one of, or I should say, the next in line of the weekly vlog posts. Just want to say thanks again to everyone. We're back, pretty much into the swing of things now. Everyone's getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games a weekend, and we've got a lot of officials that are kind of in and out of COVID protocol. So again, thank you to everyone who's helping fill in the gaps. I know Scott appreciates it. I know Jason and Ed appreciate it. I certainly appreciate it. So in that regard, just wanted to say thanks to everyone before we get started with this week's content. There's a couple things that I want to talk about this week. Number one, yes, as you can see on the screen, I am going to revisit the apparel guide, for basketball, and then we're going to talk about late game scenarios. Now, I know what you're saying, Tom. We already talked about the apparel guide. I don't want to talk about it again. I don't like playing the fashion police. I don't either. We have 196 officials on the TCAOA basketball roster. I would be surprised if 3 of those 196 officials actually liked playing fashion police. I might be overstating when I say 3. So at this point, what I would ask everyone to think about is understand that, yes, I know that we are not there to look at other teams' uniforms, to look at what they're wearing, the accessories, all of that stuff we don't care about. I understand that. But it's part of the rule book. It's part of what the MHSAA wants us to enforce. It's a point of emphasis every other year. And the reason is because we just don't officiate it consistently. And the more consistently we don't officiate it, the more we're going to hear about it from the state and the more vlog posts I'm going to have to make. So I've mentioned before, I watch a lot of games on the NFHS network, on the Federation network. Scott does as well. There's times where Scott and I talk during the week and we talk about some of the things that we're seeing on the Federation network. And apparel is one of them. It's still an issue. So if it's still an issue, that means me talking about it is warranted. So there are a couple of things specifically that I want to talk about. I don't want to go through the whole thing because I think that would, that's not a productive use of this time. But undergarments, specifically undershirts. Let's take a look at this top bullet point here. Undershirts must be a single solid color similar to the color of the torso of the uniform shirt. It's not a black, white, beige, or other predominant color of the uniform shirt. Its undershirts must be a single solid color similar to the color of the torso of the uniform shirt. So if they're wearing black, their undershirts have to be black. If they're wearing white, their undershirts have to be white. If they're wearing purple, their undershirts have to be purple. It's not, they can wear purple uniform shirts with white undershirts because it falls into the white, black, beige, or other predominant color of the uniform shirt. That's for accessories. That's not for undershirts. Okay. Undershirts have to be the same color of the uniform shirt. Now, I will say there's one caveat to that. If you cannot see any sleeve or part of the shirt past the shoulder opening of the jersey, okay? So, everyone has jerseys that cut off around the shoulder. If there's no sleeve showing out of that opening, and the only part of the undershirt that you can see is the neckline underneath the uniform shirt, that's acceptable if it doesn't match the color of the torso of the uniform shirt. So I'm talking about green jerseys with white undershirts. White jerseys with black undershirts. If I can't see anything outside of the shoulder opening, I'm not going to make an issue out of it. However, Once I see any material coming outside of that shoulder opening, that indicates to me that that is an undershirt that falls within the rules of having to be the same color as the color of the uniform shirt. Here's another thing to take into consideration, okay? When we're looking at, sorry about that, when we're looking at taking players either off the court during the game or sending them to the locker room before the game to take off miscolored undershirts, what I would do is I would look at that entire roster of players. And if they're wearing black uniforms and you've got two people on the team with white undershirts that have sleeves on them past the shoulder opening of the jersey, and you've got two other players on the team with no sleeves showing, but it's obvious from their neckline that they're wearing white undershirts with their black jerseys, I would send all four of them to the locker room to have them change their undershirts, because you don't want to get yourself in an awkward situation with a coach where you're telling a coach, these two are fine because even though they have white undershirts, we can't see them past the shoulder opening of the jersey. But these two have to go to the locker room and change because they do have the sleeves. From a consistency perspective, in that situation, I would send everyone, whether they have sleeves or not, to the locker room to have them change their undershirts. But if you've got 5 girls in black jerseys with white undershirts and they don't have sleeves on them, and the only part of the undershirt you can see is on the neckline and you can see that they're white, let's not worry about that. Okay? That's not what we're trying to fix here. We're trying to fix mismatch undershirts with clear sleeves on them that do not match the color of the torso of the uniform shirt. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense to everyone. Again, undershirts are different from accessories. I'm going to talk about accessories here in just a second, but undershirts have to be the same solid color. If they have sleeves on them, they have to be the same solid color as the torso of the uniform shirt. And even if they're sleeveless shirts or they're cutoffs, as soon as I can see even the slightest bit of material coming out of the shoulder opening of the jersey, that's the indicator to me that the undershirt needs to change. Okay. Now let's go to accessories. And remember this first bullet point. Accessories such as sleeves, including compression garments for arms, legs, knees, and elbows, headbands, and wristbands must be a single solid color of white, black, beige, or other predominant color of the uniform shirt. Now, here's a situation that you might run into. You have someone wearing a white arm sleeve with 6 teammates who are wearing black headbands. So what I'm going to do before the game starts is I'm going to go to the one person with the white arm sleeve. Again, I know a lot of players wear warm-ups, so it can be tough, but another reason to watch starting lineups or to observe players as they're coming out onto the court. Because if one player has a white arm sleeve and 6 players on that same team have black headbands, I'm going to the white arm sleeve and I'm saying, do you think you have the power to have your 6 teammates take off their black headbands? If you do, you can continue wearing your white arm sleeve. If you don't have that power, you are going to have to take your arm sleeve off and either replace it with a black one or go without. Okay. So I usually single out the one person who doesn't who doesn't have the same color on as the rest of the team's accessories. Okay. And I don't think I've ever been in a situation where I've presented someone with that information and they've gone and talked to their teammates and gotten them to take off their miscolored accessories. Okay. Like it's just not happening, which is, once you talk to that player and they realize that they are not matching the rest of their team, that's usually an indicator to them that I need to make a change. All right. So accessories, unlike the undershirts, accessories fall into the white, black, beige, or other predominant color of the uniform shirt rules. whereas the undershirt has to be the same color as the predominant color of the jersey. Okay, so enough about that. Let's talk about end of game scenarios as we continue to get into the meat of conference play. There are scenarios that excuse me, typically come up. The first scenario is it's a close game, both teams are evenly matched, and it comes down to the last 4 or 5 possessions. Excuse me. Another scenario is this team is first place in the conference, this team is last place in the conference, and there is a clear difference between the two of them in terms of ability, which creates another scenario. All right. So, first, let's talk about an end of game scenario where you are trying to foul in order to stop the clock and get the ball back. What I would recommend here, ensure that the fouling player is making a play on the ball. Okay. And if you think you're in a game where it needs to be, where a player or a coach needs to be reminded to make a play on the ball, make a legitimate play on the ball. Don't just grab a jersey and tug on it. That's an intentional foul. You're not making a play on the ball. You're grabbing a jersey. That's not a basketball play. That's an intentional foul. Okay, which leads me to my second bullet point here. Consistently call any late game fouling situation an intentional foul if it is not a legitimate play on the ball. Look, we've all been in those games where there's late game fouling. And we've all been in those games where it takes judgment on the official's part to understand whether what just happened was a legitimate play on the ball and therefore a common foul, or if it was not a legitimate play on the ball and they were simply trying to stop the clock and get the ball back. That's an intentional foul. Okay. Handfuls of jerseys, grabbing and bear hugging, slapping someone on the arm while you're making eye contact with the referee to make sure they see that you're fouling someone. Those are all intentional fouls. That's 2 shots and the ball back. Okay. Here's the reason why we need to adjudicate penalties accurately in these situations. Tempers flare because someone takes offense to how they were fouled. You're already in a situation where the game is probably pretty close, so the adrenaline is pumping not just with the players, but with the coaches and with the spectators. So all of that energy and all of that adrenaline is funneling from the stands down to the benches and finally out onto the court. And it's being played out on the court right in front of you. And you and your partner or partners are the ones that are being held responsible for managing that adrenaline. And if you're not adequately calling late game fouling situations accurately, tempers are going to flare between the players. You're going to get more grief from the coaches. You're going to hear about it from the spectators. Not that that's important, because we really shouldn't be listening to spectators in the first place. But we have to do a good job of understanding the scenario and then making calls accordingly based on what we see. Okay. Second bullet point, purposeful delays. I'm talking here about there's a made basket and maybe a team goes up 3 points with 13 or 14 seconds left in the game. And, in high school, the clock keeps running. After a made basket, clock keeps running. So made basket with 14 seconds, the person who makes the basket or one of their teammates decides, you know what, if I kind of bat the ball further out of bounds, that's another 4 or 5 extra seconds that someone's going to have to use to retrieve the ball. Well, the first time it happens, that's a warning. You want to stop the clock immediately when you see that that was the intent. So stop the clock, add the time back to the game clock, and then inbound the ball accordingly. The second time it happens, it's a technical foul, and you add time back to the game clock. So Here's what I'm saying here. The first time it happens, it's a delay of game warning. The second time it happens, it's a technical foul. But to me, the most important part of all of this is adding time back to the game clock. Because if a player bats a ball away and you take 2, 3, 4 seconds to understand what was going on before you go up with either open hand or a closed fist if it's the second time and you're calling a technical foul, the reality is they still got away with it if you don't put that 2, 3, 4 seconds back on the clock. And that's what leads me to my third bullet point, which is get in the habit of watching the clock start and stop. Okay. This is something that I'm trying to get better at. Always, as soon as the whistle sounds, my eyes take a shot immediately up to the clock to make sure it stopped. Your eyes move very quickly. Your eyes can move from the court up to the clock, back to the court within milliseconds. So you can see if the clock stopped and your eyes can be immediately back on the court. Same thing with the clock starting. Get in the habit of doing this the entire game. All right. I've had 3 different scenarios, 3 different games this year where this is where it's happened where someone either forgot to start the clock or someone forgot to stop the clock. And one of those times happened just this past week. And as a crew, we were down to maybe maybe a minute left in the game, maybe a minute and a half left in the game. 6-7 point game, so it was still pretty close. Either team could still pull it out if they got on a run or did some late game fouling or whatever the case may be. But there were 5 seconds where the clock didn't start. And if you see the clock's not starting and there's game action going on, keep a count. I kept a count with my hand when I saw that, because what was happening, the ball was being inbounded in the front court underneath the basket. And once they inbounded the ball and I could see that the clock wasn't starting, I kept a count on my hand. Okay. Just down by my side, kept a count. And the reason I didn't stop the game immediately is because there was an imminent play to the basket going on. And there was still a minute and a half left. And I knew that I could keep that count on my hand and keep it going, still watching the game. But as soon as that basket went in, or as soon as the opposing team came down with a rebound, which is exactly what happened, we stopped it. We added back the 7 seconds that it took for the clock not to start, and we went about our business. But as this last bullet point says here, make the same change in the second quarter that you would in the fourth quarter. If the clock doesn't start in the second quarter, take the time away. If it doesn't stop, add the time back. Do it in the second quarter, so that when it comes time to do it in the fourth quarter, you don't have someone saying, well, you let 8 seconds run off back in the second quarter. Why didn't you add time back then? Okay. Get in the habit of watching the clock starting and stopping, and then adding time back in or taking it off in the first and second quarter, just like you would want to in the third and fourth quarter. Another end of game scenario. The game is decided. Please officiate up until the very end of the game. The losing team is going to be very frustrated, especially if they've been getting blown out the entire game. At a game earlier this year, we were at a running clock midway through the third quarter. That team wanted nothing to do with playing in the fourth quarter. Okay. But it's important to understand that there are still lessons to be learned from athletics, even when you're getting blown out. So just remember, the losing team is going to be very frustrated. They are going to be looking for ways to take out their frustration. These are the situations we get paid for. In my pregame, I always talk about, before anything else, let's be good game managers. This is what I'm talking about. Officiating up until the final horn, not taking our focus away for 1 second. Because you might miss an elbow in the back, or an elbow in the ribs, or a slap on the arm as a player goes by another player, and that losing team is very frustrated. So they take it out on the winning team. The winning team doesn't like how they're being treated, so they snap right back at the losing team who's frustrated. Now you've got so much conflict there that you can't come back from. Be good game managers by managing the game, especially when the game is already decided. Hustle up and down the floor up until the very end. Call fouls up until the very end. Okay. I know you want to get out of there. I know you want to get off the floor. No one likes a blowout. Officiate till the end of the game. Finally, taunting the losing team. Again, officiate to the end. Good game management. Don't overlook a situation that would be called a technical foul at any other point in the game because you want to get off the floor. All right. I've seen situations where a team is up 8 points, kid gets a breakaway, he dunks with 15 seconds left in the game and decides to do a chin up on the rim. That's taunting. That's a technical foul. Even if there's 5 or 10 seconds left in a blowout game, I'm calling a technical foul on that all day. We're going to go through the entire protocol, 2 shots, ball out of bounds. Yep, we're going to be there an extra 3 minutes. But what we allow on the court, okay, is indicative of what we allow, or how we are evaluated as officials. What you allow to happen on the court is going to directly affect your the perception that people have of you. And I'm not just talking about coaches or players. I'm talking about other officials. And I'm talking about assigners. The Federation Network is great because you can watch a litany of games of your own game film on there, but it also means that Scott, Jason, and Ed are watching those same games too. And that's the way that you have to officiate. There's eyes that are constantly going to be on you now. Everyone has a cell phone with a camera on it. Every school subscribes to the Federation Network. They all have the cameras in the ceiling of uh, their court. Everyone sees everything now. And like I said here at the bottom, if you stop officiating because you don't want to influence the outcome, you are influencing the outcome. And I will let everyone kind of think about that uh, as my sign off for the week, telling everyone that I'll see you next week, and hope you continue to enjoy these vlog posts. Thank you.